Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's video. I'm so excited because I'm here again this year to answer some of my mid-year questions. This is kind of like a mid-year wrap up, if you will. There's some questions that I'm gonna leave in the description below. I was going through my video that I filmed last year and it's just crazy how many more books I've read in the year. I mean, obviously I read more books, but it's just crazy to look back and see my year in review and where I am today in my reading journey. So far this year, I have read about 63 books and my goal is 120. So I am on par. I think I'm like 10 books ahead of schedule. Things are looking up. Maybe I'll go ahead of my goal this year, which is crazy. I will say I can't just pick one book for each question. I have to pick more than one because there's more than one that just fit the question. I will also preface this by saying Magnolia Parks will be mentioned, I think, a few times, so we knew that was coming, but just know I could have used that book in that series for probably every question in here, but for the sake of the both of us, I'm not gonna do that. Best book you've read so far. So starting with the most obvious that I just said with Magnolia Parks. I couldn't pick which one I wanted to choose for this one. Just know that all of them are probably the best books I've read this year, but definitely the first one I want to just say for this question because this was the start of my journey. I watched my video last night actually of me finding Magnolia Parks for the first time. It's just a visceral memory in my brain of finding this series. I have never felt like this towards a book in my entire life, towards a series in my entire life. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about this book, this series, this character. So I do want to say the first one for this one just because I remember reading this first one and being like, okay, this is gonna change the trajectory of my reading career from here on to the rest of my life. I'm so dramatic, but like it's so true. And then I want to say Happy Place by Emily Henry. This one was just like a pleasant surprise because I didn't know if I was gonna love it and I ended up absolutely loving it. I think I just connected with this the most out of all the books I read this year. I loved the storyline, I loved the meanings behind everything, I loved the characters, and I just loved the way this was written. This is high up on one of my favorite books that I've read this year. Emily Henry again, beach read. This is actually a reread, so technically I read it for the first time 2 years ago. I'm counting it because I did reread it this year and I just fell in love with this so hard. Same thing as like Happy Place. I feel like this was a lot deeper than I feel like I read it the first time and realized after rereading it. The characters, the storyline, the grief between the two and them coming together, and just everything about this. I feel like it has now ranked top of some of my favorite books I've ever read. And then I have one more because like I said, I can't just pick one or two for each prompt. I have too many that I want to talk about. The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. I was in such a slump and this one got me right out of it. It was one of the books that really made me feel for the first time in a while. I don't know, that sounds weird saying, but absolutely loved this. The writing was super easy to follow. It was flowed so well. The storyline was really entertaining, really interesting. The character relationship was really interesting and I was just like on the edge of my seat to see where it would go. And I just love pain in books. It's just a thing. I don't know why. And the ending of this just really got me. So this one is definitely one of my favorite books that I've read this year. It's just so good. The best sequel you've read in 2023. The first one is Serpent and Wings of the Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is the Crowns of the Nyaxia. I don't want to say that. Nyaxia novel. The duet. The second one is right down here. But this one I just want to say out of all of the fantasies that I've read, I feel like was one that I just like binged and absolutely loved. And I loved the writing and the characters and the storyline was incredible. And I usually feel myself getting a little bit bored within fantasies until things pick up again, but this one I just like the whole time I was loving it. And even the second one, usually I slow down when I go into a fantasy series, but continuing to the second one, it was just so good. I absolutely loved this. And then I have the Chestnut Springs series. This one is probably one of my favorite romance series that I've read of all time. I think the writing is just phenomenal. I think that the characters, that the way that they flow through each book is just so good. The relationships in each of them, the banter within all of the characters, all of their storylines, and then the setting and the scenery and the side characters. I just love how it's such a big family feeling within all of them, like the found family. There's nothing about this series that I don't like. And I want it to never end. And then of course I have to talk about the Magnolia Parks series. Again, I only have the first one down here with me, but this whole series obviously is probably the top of everything that I've read. It's really just changed and shown me what I love in books and why I love reading. The characters are just so different from any other book I've read. The way that it's written, they just feel like real people. Entertaining, but toxic, but fun. And I just love absolutely everything about this series. As we know, I could go on forever, but I'm not going to. New release you haven't read yet, but want to. So the first one in this one is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I am so late to this game. I feel like everyone and their mother has read this by now. It is so so hyped. The reviews of this are phenomenal. Like, I've never seen a book get so hyped so quick and sell out so fast everywhere in my like entire life. Like, this is crazy. But yeah, I have not read this yet. It's on my radar for the next few weeks, hopefully. I don't really know. I'm not in the mood for a fantasy, so we'll see, but I definitely want to read this. I just feel like I've never seen a book, like I said, hyped so much, and I really want to know my opinions on this, like, so bad. So I'm excited to get to this sometime. The other one is 5-Star Weekend by Ellen Hilderbrand. It actually comes out today while I'm filming this, so I haven't read it yet. It is a new release. I don't really know what it's about. I just know that Ellen Hilderbrand is like my queen of summer reading, and I love her books over the summer. Something about them just makes me feel good. Reading them on the beach over the summer, it's just like the perfect formula for a beach read. Going on the beach and tanning and reading an Ellen Hilderbrand book, something about it just makes sense. It just like fills me with joy. So I'm so excited to get that book and to read it. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This one I have a couple for. So the first one is A Curse for True Love, which is the third book in this now gonna be trilogy. The first one is Once Upon a Broken Heart, Ballad of Never After, Curse of True Love. I am so excited to see what happens because at the end of the Ballad of Never After, there's a cliffhanger, the most painful cliffhanger ever, and I need to know how Stephanie Garber is going to make amends with everyone in the book. Like, I seriously can't even fathom what's gonna happen, but I am so excited. You have no idea. As soon as it comes out, I'm binging it. I know I'm going to. Okay, so I have that one first, and then I have Things We Left Behind, which is the third book in the Things We Never Got Over series, in the Knock 'Em Out series. This is the one that's coming out, I think it's in September, but it's Lucian and Sloane's book, which I have been waiting for since the first book I read. I've been anticipating this read for you have no idea how long. I remember reading this book and we got the crumbs, the very first crumbs of Lucian and Sloane, and I just knew I needed a book on them. I knew I was gonna love it, and I love Lucy Score's writing. She's one of my favorite authors ever. So after this one and The Things We Hide from the Light, we got even more crumbs of Lucian and Sloane, and I'm so excited to get the third one. I know that's another one that's gonna come out and I'm gonna absolutely binge and just, I feel like it's gonna be my favorite out of the whole series, so I'm just so excited. And then we have If Only I Had Told Her by Laura Nolan, which is the sequel to If He Had Been With Me, which we know if you guys watched my reading sad books for a week video, that was in there, and it easily became a 5-star read for me and one of my favorite books ever. So painful. The writing was so good though. It's a YA book, so the writing was pretty easy to grasp and like it flowed really well and it was really fast paced. Think about it to this day. Like, I'll listen to some songs in the car and I'm like, this is so Finny and Autumn, and it hurts my heart because that book is just straight pain. I'm still hurt over it, and the sequel that's coming out is in Finny's point of view. And if you've read the book, you know that's going to be a very painful journey. But I can't wait. Then I have the biggest surprise. So I took this as like a book I didn't think I was gonna like as much as I did. So the first one is Carrie Soto Is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book I read a few months ago, and my history with Taylor Jenkins Reid, I don't love her books. I did love Daisy Jones and the Six, which I didn't put in this video, but I will say it's one of my favorite books of the year. But anyway, this one I just didn't expect to enjoy. Before going into it, I knew it was about a tennis player and her journey, but while reading it, I felt like it was so much more than that. I really liked the characters that were in here and their conversations, and the storyline of this was very interesting, and I just liked the way this one was written. It was a lot more than just a woman and her tennis story. I don't know. I didn't think I was gonna like this as much as I did, so this one was a pleasant surprise for this year. The other one I have for that is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This one is actually a dystopian novel that I read this year, and I didn't think I was gonna like this because it's about like superheroes almost, and as we know, I like to read books that are just like mostly romance, and when I read fantasy, I feel like I don't really go for dystopian, even though I love dystopian books a lot. But this one was, like I said, dystopian superheroes and like two different groups going against each other, lots of action, and I don't really love action-packed books. It's just not what I go for, so this one was a big surprise for me. It's a pretty thick book, and I remember reading it and like kind of binging the second half of it and just loving it. I loved the characters. I thought the ending was really fun. It was just a really fun book, and I didn't think I was gonna love it as much as I did, obviously. That's why it's in this question's answer. And there's like a little hint of romance in here that like was really cute. So I need to finish this series because this is a trilogy, I believe, and I really enjoyed it. It was really, really fun. Favorite author, debut or new to you? So I have two new authors for me this year. The first one being Elsie Silver from the Chestnut Spring series. I love her. She is the sweetest, kindest person, and her writing is just so amazing. I think I'm gonna go in and read the other books that she has come out with because I love her writing so much. It reminds me a lot of Lucy Score, which like I said is another one of my favorite authors. It's just really fast paced. It makes me giggle but also makes me feel things, and it's just so good. I'm so obsessed with her. I'm so happy I found her writing this year. And then the other one is Carissa Broadbent, Serpent and Wings of the Night author, but she also wrote Daughter of No Worlds, which was the first one I read from her, and I quickly just was obsessed with her writing because I feel like going into at least thick fantasy books, I get overwhelmed and I get nervous going into fantasy because it takes me a while, a lot of brain power to understand a book. But with her, she kind of goes right into the story, which I found for both of the books, and she doesn't really start out with all the new terms in the background, and you don't have to like start thinking too much. Like, she's just right in the story, and then you learn as you go basically. And that's what I love about her writing, and I feel like if anyone hasn't read fantasy and just picked up one of her books, I don't think it would be confusing or be hard at all. Like, I love her writing so much. I'm so happy I found her this year too. I cannot wait for all her other releases in this little world. I'm so excited. So happy I found her this year too. Newest fictional crush. We know what's coming. We just know what's coming. BJ Valentine. I will say Julian too, but that wasn't until I got to DH2. I ended up loving him a lot because of that storyline, but I am a ride or die BJ stan. Like, I am team BJ till I die. And we know this. We know how I feel about him. Jax from The Ballad of Never After, Once Upon a Broken Heart. I found myself really, really loving him, and he was one of these, like, what am I even saying? He's one of these fantasy male characters that are like morally gray and like says some kind of stuff that you're like, ooh. But then he does something that's like betraying you. But you know what I mean. He's one of those fantasy characters. But by the end of this one, I was obsessed with him. I cannot wait for more of him in the third one. I feel like we're gonna get a lot of him in the third one too because of how this ended. And yeah, he became one of my favorite newest crushes, I guess, of the year. Jasper from Powerless. This is the third one in the Chestnut Spring series, and I'm obsessed with him. And I knew I was gonna be from the first book we got of him because he's like the quiet friend, but he grew up with all the brothers of the series, but he was like more mysterious. Like, there was a lot to him that we got a lot of crumbs of, and I was just waiting for his book because I wanted to know so bad everything about him. And then when I got his book, it was childhood friends to lovers. She's a ballerina, he's a hockey player, and I just was so excited for this book, and it lived up to what I thought I was gonna be for Jasper, and I think he's one of my favorites like ever. I'm like so obsessed with him. But yeah, those are like my top. I have so many more I could talk about, but I'm not going to get into it because I feel like a lot of the romances I read this year had a lot of the male main characters that I enjoyed, but those are like the top that like I love right now, at least. A book that made you happy. First one is The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. This is her new adult romance. It's her new release of this year that I obviously read. I kind of just picked it up and started reading it, and then I binged it in under 24 hours, and I was just so obsessed with the story because it goes so quick, and her writing in this one was just really fun, really fast paced. I remember reading it and just loving it and just being happy. I guess I don't really know how to explain why this one made me happy, but I just know that it did. And I love this book, and I've been recommending it if anyone wants just like a fast-paced, good little new adult romance. And it was so good, and I remember loving this. And then I have Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This one just made me happy because I feel like I haven't read a romance like this, and I feel like the way that the relationship kind of grew, I really liked the way that they communicated with each other and how they were with each other, like a lot. Like the way that they talked over the phone at night, and the way that they bantered with each other and kind of joked with each other and kind of like made fun of each other, but in like a fun, cutesy way. I don't know. It made me really happy. I really liked this book, and I cannot wait to watch the movie. And then obviously I have the Chestnut Spring series, and I want to say that this one made me happy because by the time I got to Reckless, that I just recently read, this is the newest release that just came out, you know so much about all the side characters and all the characters in here, so when they make their little cameos, like in this one, like the couple from the first book, or Harvey, which is all the brothers' dad, like it made me so happy. And she puts little text messages in the beginning of some chapters, and they just made me giggle, and she knows how to pull at your heartstrings, but she also knows how to make you giggle, and I giggled a lot. This series makes me happy. A book that made you cry. I'm pretty sure all three of these, there's a video on me crying while reading these books, which is very humbling. But first one is Brightside by Kim Holden. I went into this kind of blind, wasn't expecting it to be what it was, and by the end of it, I think the last like 150, 200 pages, I was just bawling. My face was wet. I've stayed up till like 2 or 3 a.m. trying to finish this, and I couldn't contain myself. It was like the crying tears that I felt while reading A Thousand Boy Kisses, and that was like hyperventilating crying, and that's what this was. I literally couldn't contain myself. It was rough. The story was good. It was very interesting, but like once the end came and like I was getting closer to what was gonna happen, just waterfalls the whole time. I know I said I wasn't gonna talk about it a lot, but Magnolia Parks, I think every single book has made me cry. MP2 and DH2, like the last two in the series right now, made me cry the hardest because of what happens in those, but every single book has made me tear up. And I know when I read this and Magnolia Parks 2 on video, I think Daisy Hates 2 is on one video too, crying. I'm just crying the whole time. The quotes are just unbelievable, and just that alone will get me to cry, but just I don't have to get into it, but just know that I cried in every single book. Beach Read by Emily Henry, I did end up crying. I remember it so vividly in my brain when I got to the end of the book, and if you remember the end of the book, there's some stuff that she starts like reading and going through, and it just like hit me so hard, and I cried like a big baby. I think the second round of reading this hit harder than the first round because I don't remember crying the first time reading this, but I think after knowing the character so well and reading it again and picking up on new things, I cried. I cried a lot. Most beautiful book you've bought this year so far. So I actually have two. One is like cover wise, it's the most beautiful, and the other one is like the writing wise is so beautiful. the most beautiful. First is My Dark Romeo by Parker S. Huntington and LJ Shen. So this one, cover-wise, is the most beautiful cover I own. I bought this book because of the cover. I'm gonna be so completely honest. I remember seeing this online. I remember Lauren sending it to me and I was like, we're buying this. One, because we liked Darling Venom by Parker S. Huntington, but two, because this cover is just so beautiful. Like, they knew what they were doing with this cover. And it's so deceiving from the front. Like, I just did not expect this book to be what it was. This is kind of like a darker romance, age gap, marriage of convenience. Very interesting read, but it was very entertaining. If you just want an entertaining, I'm not giving recommendations right now. I don't know why I just started giving you a recommendation for this book, but the cover is so beautiful. Like, putting that on my shelf, I love it. And then the most beautiful written wise is One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. I just think Olivia Blake's writing is so beautiful. I've only read one other book from her, but after reading these two, I can like confidently say her writing is just so beautiful. It's very poetically written. This one is more like tragedy, drama, and also the lyrical type of writing within it. Like, all of that together, it was just so beautiful. Like, my annotations from this book are some of my favorites because it's just like, it was so like deep in the words that she was using and like the meaning. I don't know, it was so good. This one has just such beautiful writing. I love her writing. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? I have to read so many. There are so many books that I need and want to read by the end of the year, but I picked two that I just like need to. Like, I don't care what other books are on my TBR that I need to get to. These two have to be done by the end of the year. And I know what you're gonna say. You're like, Sarah, are you gonna finish the Addicted series? We'll find out. But the two that I do need to finish is the ACOTAR series, Court of Silver Flames. Like, don't let me finish out this year without finishing this book. Please. I know I'm going to. I'm just now waiting for the fall time to get to it. I read, I think 60, maybe 80 pages of this book and then put it down because I wasn't in the mood, and I want to be in the mood for this. I did do it to myself and took a really long break from the last one that I read in the series, so I feel like I'm not really in the world and I'm not wanting to pick it up, but I know when I do, I'll probably enjoy it. But I want to get to her other series, so I feel like I need to finish this because I want to get to those by the fall. So don't let me finish this year without reading this book, please. I know Destiny will hold me up to this if I tell her. Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent. I actually got halfway through this book. I think I'm like 45% of the way through, but I definitely want to finish this before the end of the year. I want to finish this whole series out just because I feel incomplete, because I didn't DNF this completely. Like, I want to get back to it and it feels very wrong that I still have this on my little TBR and I'm halfway through. Like, I'm so close, you know. I just have 300 more pages to go. The beginning was really slow, but then I saw that everyone that I know was reading it said that it just picks up so quick. So I know I'm gonna get back to it, but I need to finish this by the end of the year. And I think that's it. I think that's all from this video. So again, the questions are gonna be down below if you are interested in answering them for yourself, catching up with the books you've read this year and seeing what's your favorite. I love doing this. I love seeing what books have stood out to me throughout the year. I also have this book sitting in front of me and I don't remember which prompt I put it with because on my notes app that I answer the questions on, I didn't write this down. So I don't know if I put this with a fictional crush, which is Wrath, or a book that surprised me because I didn't love the first two too much, but then this one like was obsessed with it. But this is in my pile and I don't remember why, but I did love this book like so much. I love Wrath, so could be with one of those. Let me know any of your books and answer maybe some of these questions in the comments if you want. If you want to let me know how you're feeling. Let me know how you feel about my little wrap up. I'm, like I said, ahead of my goal. So let's see if I will get further past the books I want to read this year. I think last year I read, I can't remember actually. I'm gonna have to go back and look so I can see if I beat myself this year. I'm in a competition with myself. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you did. Let me know if you answer any of these questions. I feel like it's fun to just like look back on what's going on this year. You know, I can't believe we're halfway through the year. It blows my mind every time I think about it because June is my birthday month, but it's also halfway through the year, which makes me a little nervous because I'm like, how did all 6 months go by so quick? And here we are. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed and I will see you hopefully in the next one. Goodbye.